Today, we will be discussing Microsoft integrations with ArcGIS. With that, I'll go ahead and turn over our presentation today to Andrew Stauffer.
Hello, and thank you everyone for joining us today, spending an hour with us to talk about ArcGIS integrations with Microsoft. We have a little bit of an agenda today, going over the 4 different integrations that we have, 4.5, you'll see why in a little bit. And we'll also do some demonstrations and talk about what's new. Some of you might have seen or known that we had products that integrated with Office and SharePoint in the past. We're really excited. Team's done a lot of work, and we're re-releasing these with a really fresh user experience to them now. So as we go ahead and get started, I'm just gonna move here into the next slide, and we'll start talking about ArcGIS for Office. So I mentioned that this was just re-released and redeveloped. This was just released last week. And this has our modern mapping experience in it. So this one common theme you'll see when we're showing all the different products here is that we have a consistent mapping experience across Office, SharePoint, and Power BI. Now what this means is if you get familiar with using the mapping interface in Office or Power BI, you'll easily be able to start working with SharePoint or one of the other products. So we're trying to create this very simple, seamless experience. Within Office, we can take obviously a spreadsheet of data and geo-enable it. So we can take any data that's in Excel, go ahead and put it on a map. We can do this through address matching. If it already has coordinates, we can take an XY or lat long, go ahead and put that on a map. Or we can even do some boundary matching. So I have a bunch of data, it has zip codes. We can join that to the map, and I can see where that's going to be. All the zip code polygons will be represented. And then I can go ahead and style that map based on some of the different values that are here. Now, one of the things I like to point out too is that with Office, we really start to see a couple different workflows. One, I use Excel all the time. I manipulate my data, work with, edit it, and I create some charts. Sometimes I just snapshot those charts. I put them in a report, I email them out. You know what, you can do that now with a map. That map can be created, it can stay in Excel, it doesn't have to leave, you can screenshot it, send it all around. Office is our integration, so we do even can bring content directly into SharePoint or into PowerPoint as well, excuse me. The other thing though, it's great, my published spreadsheet and my map lives within Excel, but one of the things I can do is take that data and then publish it to my GIS. So whether it's ArcGIS Enterprise, ArcGIS Online, I can make that data available to others. As I'm editing data and making changes within my Excel spreadsheet, I can even send updates to that hosted feature service, again, in Online or in Enterprise that other people could be using. So this becomes a really good way of tying in data management and editing that's happening within Excel to an active live GIS, or again, just creating some of the static maps. Now, in addition to just making maps, we can do a lot of dot on map kind of things, but what makes it unique is we can start to bring in web maps and other layers. So we can tap into the Living Atlas, we can add demographic data, we could add, if it suits your needs, soil data, anything that's coming from your ArcGIS organization, again, being Online or Enterprise. Anything else you find out there, it could be weather data from NOAA that's important to add into your map. So really, really, really interesting context comes to light when we add all of these layers behind your data. And we also have some tools to do some lightweight analysis. So we can do demographics as we're kind of panning and zooming, what's the population within the map extent, different things like that, or interacting with the data. We can take points on the map and go ahead and buffer them, and then again, return what is it, if it's population, is it income? We've got about 1,700 different variables, I believe, that you can tap into and we can display here. I mentioned we can bring these maps directly into PowerPoint. So often as we're presenting, we show a static map. And if we're in these situation, debriefs, it's operational, we show a map, you can guarantee somebody in the room is going to say, hey, what's just a little north of that? Or if we go west 5 miles, what am I going to see? So having that interactive map in the presentation saves a lot of time to answer questions in the now. As we go forward, one of the things I talk about as we get through all of these licensing. In the past, you could download the ArcGIS for Office plugin, install it, but you had to have an account to get started and even do anything. We did change that a little bit. If you download and install the plugin, it's completely free. If you have XY data, you don't need an account to go ahead and work with that XY data. But if you log in with an ArcGIS identity, being a viewer or higher, we can take address data and add it to the map. So it's going to do some geocoding, and it'll sort of go to the default geocoder set up within the organization. So it can be the world geocoder or something that you're running on your enterprise. Then if I'm somebody who's really going beyond just making a map that lives in my spreadsheet, I need to publish it back to the GIS. I'm editing data in Excel, publishing my updates to the GIS, then I'll need that Creator Plus account. So again, I can manage just a layer, I can publish the full web map. So it really depends on your needs and the level of interactivity, but we have a really, really flexible licensing model now when we're working with Office. Some common questions that we do get, hey, does this work with enterprise? This will be a theme across all the products. Yes, ArcGIS for Office works with enterprise 10.7.1 or higher. And the viewer support I mentioned does come in at 10.9.1, so that'll be a little bit more there towards the future. But Creator Plus can do all of these things right now. GIS professionals can do all of this right now as well. How does the geocoding work? I said, hey, I can go in, I have a big list of addresses and a bunch of data in Excel. I want to see it on a map. I can go ahead and choose to geocode that. When I do, if I'm using ArcGIS Online, it uses the world geocoder. Costs a couple credits to do it, no big deal. If I have enterprise set up and we're actually going against a geocoding service that we manage locally, maybe we have StreetMap Premium or our own locators, it'll go ahead and work against that. So just the difference is, credits to consume an online service, or you set up and manage all the local infrastructure to handle all of this for high volume requests. Another question, what should I know about security with Office? Well, this is where I like to say we support ArcGIS Enterprise security methods or the ArcGIS sharing model. So if somebody's allowed to publish and share public, then they can take their Excel spreadsheet, publish it, and share it public. Within their ArcGIS organization, if they're not allowed to share it public, great, they can just publish it to the organization but not share it public. So we're going to honor all of those security mechanisms that administrators put in place, and make sure that all the accounts have the right settings too. Now, one of the things we like to talk about is some different use cases. In this case, Nova Scotia Department of Fisheries and Aquaculture. This was a case where they had about a department of about 70 people, and they were always relying on one GIS person asking them all these questions. And so, what Matt did is said, hey, you're all using Office. I'm getting all of these CSV files and Excel files. Install this plugin, and he enabled them to start doing some of their own self-service analytics, add their own data to the map, start to ask some of their own questions. And they could do this really quick, put my data on a map, but then they wanted to edit, make it available in some other applications, and almost get into some GIS workflows. So he took some of his power users, gave them creator accounts, and then they were consistently publishing and updating data to the GIS that they do reporting on with dashboards and all these other products that we have. So it was really cool to see this use case where enabling some of these information workers or people that live in Excel with just the capability to create a map lightened his workload. And then as it started to come back, they wanted to see more things, he could give them more tools. This even led to some of those power users of Excel that were doing some mapping to say, all right, well, now I need an ArcGIS Online lesson because I'm going to go in, I'm going to use the map viewer and all this other fun stuff with the analysis tools and create applications. And there's even a couple people that bridged over, and now they are actually using and training up on ArcGIS Pro and learning some of these really, really cool science tools that we have available. So really cool to hear all of that about ArcGIS for Office and this big refresh that we have coming. Next, I want to talk about ArcGIS for Power BI. This is a really popular one out there. Microsoft Power BI has taken off. Everybody's using it, and they worked with us about 4 years ago. Said, hey, we're the best of breed of BI. You're the best of breed of location intelligence. Let's work on this shared visual within the product. So our teams got together. We regularly meet with their development team, and we built ArcGIS for Power BI, this visual that actually ships in the box with Power BI. So the whole goal here, Power BI is fantastic. It has all these data connectors. It has ways of cleaning data and processing data and updating your data on scheduled intervals, all of this really fun, exciting things. But you would create charts from it. You could do time slicers. You could do table filters. But one of the things that was lacking was a really powerful map. So any of the data that's loaded into Power BI, we can now start to visualize on the map. In addition, and just like we talked about with Office, when I visualize that data on the map, I can now add some other layers for context. So reaching into the living atlas and graphic data, do I want weather data? That's all sorts of content from ArcGIS that we can bring into our reports that add some context and provide a little bit more meaning to what we're seeing with these dots on a map. Now, again, here we have some lightweight analysis tools, the demographic variables and cards that show up, doing some drive times or buffers by 3-5 miles, when it can be even greater, and then trying to gather some statistics about, what is in that trade area. Are we seeing a population of how much, 5 miles from my store? A big thing that we worked on last November in ArcGIS for Power BI was the ability to publish to web or embed reports. So what that means is if I'm somebody who uses Power BI desktop, that's great. It saves everything in a project file called a .pbix. I can share that out with everybody at that Power BI desktop. They can open it up, they can see it. I can publish it up to the Power BI service. Every time somebody opens up that report and they have access to it, they see it. But the support for publish to web and embed, and this is something that Microsoft was really encouraging us. They wanted us to put in here. We said, okay, great, we'll do it. And what this means is once I've published it up to the Power BI service, I can now start to embed it in websites. So if I have a SharePoint site and I want to embed a report, I can do that. If I want to publish it to the web and just here's a URL that the public can go hit and use this report, answer some questions, work with the data, they can do that. Now, this is only available if somebody logs in with an ArcGIS account. And we do have some minor stipulations on it. So the data that we share has to be point-based, not polygon-based, but we can talk about that specifically in a little bit. With support for publish to web and embed, this also brought to work our delivery through Microsoft's Power BI Reports server. So if you've installed Power BI Reports server since January of 2021, then you have this visual available. The admin may have to enable it, but it's there. Cool, we can start to work with it. We have this really good integrated experience with ArcGIS for designers and viewers. We'll see this in the licensing bit here, but anybody can use this. It ships in the box. So if Microsoft has 200 million users or 1 billion users, everybody has this. It just is automatically part of the software. This is part of our agreement together that we've renewed and we're extending for many more years. And so there's this free experience, but then if you log in with an account, you get this enhanced capabilities like publish to web. And as that report designer, I might actually include some private layers from ArcGIS. Again, these contextual layers that are coming from my organization. And we do secure those. So if I have a secured layer within my map in the report, then we'll go ahead and make sure to challenge whoever is viewing your report to make sure that they're properly authenticated and they are somebody who you want to be able to see this information. Now, this is a new one that we have coming out. This is kind of right now an extension to Power BI for us, coming from the Power Platform team here at Esri. And this is called Power Automate. So this is a growing technology where people are streamlining tasks. We do the same things over and over. Power Automate can automatically do this for you every minute, every hour, once a week, whatever you choose. And so what we built here is an integration in with ArcGIS, so we can go ahead and geocode. We can write data to ArcGIS. We can pull data from ArcGIS. This is how we're going to go ahead and start to enable the flow of more data into Power BI as well. Now, as this is, again, kind of a cutting edge technology with Microsoft, it's a no code or low code solution, meaning I can put this together and I don't have to be a developer. I just have to be somebody who can read and kind of logically link all of my statements together like we see here in the graphic. I can use my ArcGIS identity. So I log in as Andrew Stoffer, it runs through, it has access to what I have access to. Or maybe I'm doing some processing and it's a department that doesn't have identities, or I'm not going to expand that out, but everybody needs to run these functions. Well, then we can use the ArcGIS API key that connects to the platform as a service piece. So it's really cool that this is going to come out, and we can get to it with our ArcGIS identity or the API key, and we have that flexibility to support these different workflows. On licensing, I talked about this just a little bit. We're going to go a couple steps deeper now. It's included with Power BI. It's available for everyone out there. As I mentioned, anybody who installs it, ArcGIS or Power BI is there. They can go ahead and use the account. There's some limitations, and then we do more or enable more if you log in with an identity. If we take a closer look at this table, you see that base map views are unlimited. That's fine. Geo searching, this is where we're talking about taking your address data in Power BI and putting it on a map. So no account, free to use for everybody. It's limited at 3,500 points. If you have an ArcGIS identity, we do 10,000 points per map, and it's unlimited per month. Now, what I like to point out here is Power BI is a little bit different than all of the other ArcGIS applications out there, where ArcGIS for Power BI doesn't consume any credits. So if I add my 10,000 points to the map in this particular BI report, and I do 50 BI reports a week, and everybody's opening them and everybody's viewing them, and they're the most popular things out there, the credit consumption is absolutely zero. So it's all kind of baked into the product here. And the public gets a little less on the drive time, infographics, and boundary matching, again, increased with an ArcGIS identity. The Living Atlas is a subset publicly, but with an identity, you get access to all of it, all of that really rich curated content. And even adding premium content. So we talked about the world traffic layer, or if you purchase layers and data from the ArcGIS marketplace, maybe it's movement data or ways data, something like that, you can add that into your reports. And I've said this a couple of times, but here it is on the slide. So the ability to publish the web and embed, not available for the public, but if you log in, we can go ahead and embed this into a SharePoint site, a website, or make it publicly accessible. So some common questions here. How does this geo-enablement work within Power BI? What we're taking a look at here, and we'll see this in the demonstration, is this part here is called the field well within Power BI, and we're looking at the ArcGIS configuration here. And so if I was going to do an address match or a boundary match, again, I have zip codes, it's just states, or it's a single line address, I can drop that into the location field well. It's going to just send that information over to the geocoder, get back a geometry so it can display it on a map. You could have all of these other variables that we see here with crime incidents, where it's the offense type and everything else under the sun. None of that gets sent over, just the information we need to get a geometry. If it's ever concerning about, oh, we don't want to send that information over, then I encourage you to just generate the XYs yourself, run them against the geocoder, and then you can just add the latitude, longitude, and it'll appear immediately on the map. That's one thing we can know about here. Security considerations. So again, with ArcGIS security model, if I have access to see a layer that's been added to the map, great, I can see it. If I don't have access, I won't be able to. We want to keep those security controls tight. because we don't want to leak information out. The other question that we do get asked a lot is, what about ArcGIS for Power BI doing PKI or integrated Windows authentication? That's not currently supported in Power BI Desktop right now. That is something that we would say is more of a DNA level change within Power BI itself, not our extension, but the software that Microsoft develops and ships as well. And we've brought your concerns that come from all of our Esri customers when we meet with the team, we meet with their product managers as well. And you know, we talk about this and they said, okay, you know, this is a really big fundamental change. We'll start to look at it. You know, we think it's something we can begin work on in 2022. So this is something we hope that will start to change and they'll fix. But for right now, you know, if you need to authenticate over to the portal, these ArcGIS accounts are going to be the best way of doing that. Or if you configure your organization with SAML, so we can go ahead and just kind of seamlessly pass those identities around, that would be a good workaround here. So how do I embed a report into a new site? Talked about this. If I'm a creator plus, I can go ahead and publish that report to the BI service, and I can embed or publish to web. So cool, we'll get to see that in a minute. I did mention this, you know, we have these 3 ways of adding data. We can do XY, we can do address, or we can do boundary match. Right now, currently as of today, we only support XY if we're going to embed or publish to web. We have a phenomenal amount of tools that allow you to visualize the data and see it different ways. So you know, you're not losing out on having a choropleth map. You can do some really great things with size and color of the location. But in the future, and not very distant future, we're talking 2-3 weeks here, our support for Power Automate is going to allow you to take addresses, actually geocode to XY and store it in here. Or if we do boundary matching, store the geometry local and then embed and publish that to the web. So if this is a workflow that you're really dying to get at and really eager for, please follow up with us and we'll be more than happy to work with you and show you all of this when the technology rolls out in the next few weeks. Another question we get, you know, how does this work with Report Server? As I mentioned, if you install Report Server in January of 2021, ArcGIS for Power BI is there. It might have to be enabled by an admin. That's fine. Anybody out there working on very, very secured networks, no internet access, it's not going to work the way that you hoped. We do require an internet connection, so that way it can actually load the visual in. And we do have a lot of requests from some of our federal government agencies wanting this to all work behind a firewall. We're trying to work through Microsoft on how that would be possible. Now there's a lot on their part and then a little bit that we can help with too. So we hear you on that. We want to work towards that. But right now, if you're using Report Server, internet connection will be required. So great case with Power BI, Stryker Medical. They purchased or acquired another company. They had this big overlap of customers and sales staff. And so, you know, essentially what they did is they mapped it all. And then just by seeing everything on the map of the convergence of these 2 companies, they were able to see, you know, who is a successful salesperson, who were customers that were purchasing, where were the gaps, and you know, realign their strategy. So this is a little bit more of a common, we're taking some regular data, putting it on a map, and then making these geo decisions together. So great use case. We like to see that. If you have any in the Fed space that you know you would like to share with us, please reach out to your account manager. We'd love to talk with you, learn more, and share your story. So now I'm actually going to stop presenting some slides and we're going to demo the software and walk through everything. And you can see what we've been doing. We're going to start with taking a look at some COVID vaccine data. This is something I've downloaded from the HDX site, the Humanitarian Data Exchange. And if we take a look at this, the country name, I've got an ISO value, some other values, population. We have the COVID vaccination forecast, and then we have the different types of vaccinations that have been delivered. So AstraZeneca, SII, SK Bio, is it Pfizer or BioTech? Great. As I scroll through here, though, one of the things I see, there's no XY. How can I put this on the map? So What I'm going to do is I'm going to click on my ArcGIS tab because I've installed the plugin. I'm going to go ahead and click Add Map. And when I click to add the map, it's going to prompt me to sign into my ArcGIS account, or I can continue with public access. So public access can work great if I have an XY. In this case, I don't have my XY. So I'm going to go ahead and sign in. All right, and now it's ready for me to go ahead and start working. So I'm going to slide the map to the side or just down for a moment. And I want to add this data. So I'm going to select from country over to column NM, and then down to 27 to get all of them. And in the map visual here, I want to go ahead and add data from Excel. So it automatically picked up that I have a selection, and it's prompting me, does my first row have headers? In this case, yes, it does. I'll click on that. Now it wants to know the location type. So coordinates, address. I could do a geography match. This would give me some polygons. In this case, I have some other plans for the data. So I'm just going to go ahead and do address. We're going to look at the world geocoder with country specific being world. So we're not really tied to just US, Canada, or elsewhere. And this is going to be a single column. So my address field here is just going to be the country name. And we'll say add to the map. Now what we did is we took all of that data from Excel, we've added it to the map, and we can see it here in the background. I'm going to go ahead and switch. I've got a lot of different base maps. So we have the Esri default base maps that are available. Really cool Firefly imagery that looks great. Or I can add in my organization's custom base maps. So in this case, we're looking at the United Nations. So we've added in a custom base map here. If I want, continue to start working with these layers, I can go up here and say, all right, I want to draw the data based on, let's say, total vaccinations delivered. And this is using counts and amounts size. I can do heat maps, individual accounts, quite a few options. If I hover over this, I can change my style options. So I can go ahead and adjust what's going to be large and small. Probably don't want to mess with this too much. We usually do a really good job creating these intelligent defaults. And then, okay, that's classifying data. And then I can also change the max size, make that larger. The min size could be larger just to make sure that something's not being forgotten. Transparency, anything else I want to change. I can turn on point clustering if I had a lot of dense data. I can configure pop-ups in here. So if I want to share this map, whether it be with my GIS or I just save it in Excel and let somebody else come and view it and they interact with it, I can configure these custom pop-ups here. I can even go ahead and enable some labels. So maybe I turn them on, and the field that I want to put in here is the country name. That works. I can change my label placement. I like this feature enabling the halo, so the labels really stand out. Test different text colors, but we'll stick with that. And then, if I'm really happy here and I'm excited, I can go ahead and share, publish this up to the GIS, again, Enterprise Online, give it a title tags. And then the next thing is security. Do I want to share it to myself, everyone, organizations, or certain groups that I have access to? For me right now, I'm not going to go ahead and do that. You can see here's some additional properties. If I want to look at visible scale range, if I move it down here, they don't show, and then as I zoom in, it would. If I stay here, they do show. So this publish option here is just for the specific layer. But let's say I've added a bunch of different layers. I've added weather. I've added this glorious content from the Living Atlas. There's a publish option over here, which is actually going to share the entire map. So it's going to take that whole thing as a web map and push it over the line. Now, remember I said I had some different intentions for this data. And in this particular case, I really wanted to take this data from HDX and get some XY values to it, because I'm going to use it in Power BI. So what I can do is I can go ahead and select all of this data here with that lasso tool. And I could show selected rows within Excel. They're already shown. But the other thing I can do is export selected rows. So if I export them, it asks me what folder, we'll put it into export test and hit save. Now I've already done that, and we can see here's our export test that appears, and there's our lat long values that have been written into it. So hooray, I took some flat data, I geocoded it in Excel so that way I could get an XY, created a new XLS or a new spreadsheet for it, and now I can go ahead and bring that into Power BI. I can save that guy. Now if I go into Power BI, again, just for sake of speed, I've taken that data and loaded it into Power BI. So the way that you do that is you can say get data, Excel workbook, export test, open, and then it's going to prompt me. And if anybody's new to Power BI, this is really cool. This is where it actually starts to do some data cleaning, and there we go. And I can say I want to change values, I want to transform the data, and it just loads it into Power BI. Power BI stores a cache of the data, and that's that way it operates and runs really, really fast, right? So as I said, that part's been done, and now I want to start to build out my visualization. So I'll double click on ArcGIS Maps for Power BI, and we see that I'm already logged in. There's my dog in the background. And I'm going to go ahead and start adding data. So I could just add lat and long if I was a standard user, but in this case, I'm an ArcGIS user. We'll take our lat longs here. We'll do lat long. Cool. That's that same data from HDX that I put in here. And now I can do some different things. And we did tailor the mapping experience. If you remember from Power BI, we had this really nice catalog over here on the left. This is using Microsoft's Fluent UI toolkit. So we're creating this consistent user experience that aligns directly with the technology that Microsoft builds and delivers. So the exact same, what we're very, very similar to what we'll see in Excel. Why I changed my tone is it didn't say exact, is because we do make some modifications so that way it is unique to Power BI. So for Power BI, if you're working with graphs and charts or like this map, some of the things you might do is drag things into the field goal to change the behavior of the visual. So we talked about doing total delivered, and I'm going to take that and I'm going to add that to my size. So when I drag that over, now it starts to look like the map that I had in Excel. And then I can change my symbology in here. We talked about location, heat map, size. This time I'm on size. As I scroll down, I can do all sorts of fun things, changing the transparency, the fill color. Pick that blue. Maybe the outline color is a darker blue. We can change the thickness. So I can do a lot of things. Again, I'm trying to communicate something with my map. So I want to do some really good cartography. Maybe I follow John Nelson, some of the amazing stuff that he does, and we'll soon be doing in Excel. Awesome. We can bring that to light here. Again, we can change the number of classes and then max point size, all of that fun stuff. So we've brought this whole experience in. I will pause too and say, we didn't create all of this. A lot of this is actually coming from our JavaScript API, which powers ArcGIS Online, its map viewers. And so we're able to bring this same tech directly into the products that you live in every day using Microsoft 365, being Excel, being Power BI. So if this location only and heat map looks very similar, that's why. That's directly where it's coming from. Now, cheating a little bit, we go over to my second tab in the report here. And we can see that I've made my map pretty. I've put in a custom base map. I've even toggled it so it can't be scrolled. Maybe I don't want people zooming in and out. I really just want to show them the graphic. Great, I've done that here. And with this data, what I'm able to do is as I'm interacting with the report, it's going to go ahead and start to change the values that we see in the other visuals. So it's driving the behavior in my charts. I can click on different parts here and also start to drive what's happening in the map. So there's this direct relationship of what's happening in all of these different visuals. And this is much more than just a dashboard. Dashboards do a great job of showing us the current status of some data. We can zoom, it could change a little bit. We do some things there. But BI reports themselves are meant to be engineered for an audience that really wants to ask questions of the data, to dig and start to learn more. So one example that we have here is, here's a BI report that's been published to the web. And here we're looking at transit in San Francisco. So here's this map. We know and love it. I can click and filter on it right here. So if I look at only the bid and award, or what is the contract for closeout, what is in design, and what is in planning. So lots of different projects going on. But remember, I said that BI reports take us a lot deeper than just, a current status of what's happening. I can go to the second page here and start to work through these categories to understand who's working on it in the budget. Or another way that I can actually look at this is coming into this dashboard where I say, all right, I really am curious of, what is on closeout, and then we can take a look here at who's in charge and what was the project budget. Or if I clear that out, maybe I want to go down here and I see that my construction schedule status shows on schedule or it's late. So here I want to choose what's late, and I can actually see who to follow up with and what is the cost of these projects that are late or going over budget. So I was asking more questions, drilling through and getting deeper, a lot more than I was just getting an overview and a status of, what does the data look like right now. I was teasing some bits here too about ArcGIS for Power Automate. So if we just take a quick look over here, this is in our QA right now. This is not publicly released yet. We are getting really, really close, but this is one way I can automate some flows. So I have a spreadsheet of information. It has countries. I don't want to go through that awesome process you just showed me over and over every day, or maybe you do because you just appreciate that greatness. So what you can do here is you can go into Power Automate, say I want to get the data, I'm going to automatically geocode it. I'll write it to a CSV file. I'll have Power Automate refresh every 2 hours to pick up that fresh data that's being processed every 2 hours as well. So Power Automate is going to make our lives easier. It's going to get rid of these mundane tasks so we can focus on the harder and more creative things that we're going to be working on. Okay, so from there, I'm just going to change gears. We're going to talk a little bit about ArcGIS for SharePoint and kind of speed things up just a touch. Again, completely re-envision this mapping interface. This lines up with what we see in Power BI, what we see in Excel. You know how to use one of the maps, you know how to use all of the maps. Two key workflows I like to talk about here is visualizing SharePoint data. So if you're in an organization or department where a SharePoint list is your database and is your source of truth and you're putting everything in there, excellent. We can go ahead and geo-enable that, put it on a map, and as that data is changing, your map's changing, and we can add in all these other layers again. We can do lightweight analysis. I think everybody on the call is starting to see that there's a pretty consistent theme here. The other thing that becomes very powerful in ArcGIS for SharePoint is great, we did the database thing, or no, we don't store any databases in there, but if you use SharePoint, you're probably storing in a lot of documents. So if we think about EPA, we have a lot of documents about a Superfund site, there's a Word doc, there's a PDF doc, there's a PowerPoint presentation, everything's around this particular Superfund location. Well, I can geotag those documents and now they become discoverable on a map. So as I pan and zoom and I click on the Superfund site, it gives me all of the assets that were geotagged to that location. Licensing for it, this extension is free to download and install. Public can create data with XY, same thing that we were doing in Office. And then viewer can go ahead and geocode the addresses. Creator can actually take the maps that they make in SharePoint and publish those to the GIS if they want. Really, really interesting workflows we'll see here. Common questions, what's available online versus premise. We kind of made a little bit of a split here. If you're following our product naming at home, ArcGIS Maps for SharePoint is our classic. Classic will be the way that we continue to support SharePoint on premise. In working very closely with Microsoft, we've talked a lot, and they've told us that everybody's moving towards SharePoint Online. We have the specific GovCloud, we have all of these GCC requirements from low to high. SharePoint Online is the way to go. So that's where a lot of our future development work is going in the modern applications. Can I use both versions of SharePoint? Yes. Sometimes people are using classic to geotag documents because it's not there in modern right now, but modern is going to be updated to support this. I believe it'll probably be before the end of the year. So our goal is to get fully feature parity in the modern experience. We're supporting SharePoint Online going forward. Maybe even do some things with SharePoint Online, can support Teams tabs and a lot of other cool creative things. Does it work with ArcGIS Enterprise? Yeah, both of them work with Enterprise. We can authenticate over to ArcGIS Enterprise on Classic or on the new modern one that's just about to be released. We have just one or two more hurdles that we're going to cross. I actually expect this to hit Microsoft's App Source late tonight or early tomorrow morning. So great case study on this is, talking about Geoscience, which is this groundwater consulting firm in Southern California. They've been around about 50 years. They have tons and tons of documents, but all of these documents relate to a location, a place, a where. So they've gone through, they geotagged all these documents, and the gains that they're seeing is when they bring in a new employee, they're able to quickly tap into over 50 years of documentation and experience, find it, learn about, read, and they get up to speed really quick. So organizing, 4 to 5 decades worth of information and just being able to find it on map meant a whole lot to this particular group. While we're in this mode of sharing, we can talk about ArcGIS for Teams. This is a new product we just released a few months ago. Pre-release is available today, so if you have Teams, you can go into the App Store and request it. It does right now only work with ArcGIS Online. When we released it, there was a lot of great expectations and ambitions of what this could do. Really like to lower those. We're really about search and view and share. We're tapping into your GIS content. We're making it available where these conversations are happening. You can start to get a little collaborative if you have access to the map viewer and you're able to edit that particular feature layer. You open it up within Teams, you can actually do some editing in there. Totally up to you. You do that editing in Teams, you do it in a browser. We don't care. We're just making it smoother and more seamless for you. Or even survey 123, I can go ahead and send somebody a survey, they open it up, they interact with it right there within Teams. This could be Teams Mobile or Teams Desktop. And the licensing bit on this, again, public can do anything. They can search, they can download it, install it for free, search all the public content that we have available, share it, send it around. We've seen some really, really cool use cases with this so far. If you want to get to your private content, you need an ArcGIS user to be able to go ahead and log in and start to interact with it. We are, still in this pre-release phase. We're working on getting our certification. If you don't see it available in your team store, this is something that your administrator may have to go ahead and enable and make available to everybody. Biggest question we get, I already hit this one a couple times. Do you support ArcGIS Enterprise? When are you going to support ArcGIS Enterprise? We're not doing it now. We have some things that we want to do to wrap up and call things final. But we'll probably begin development work on this sometime in 2022. That sounds far, but if we look at the calendars, it's not all that far. So, great one here, Broward County, Florida. They were one of our voice of the customers that we interview. Hey, there's a lot of activity around Teams. We're thinking of building something. Would it make sense? And we really vet these ideas. We don't want to just create cool tech that somebody might use. We want to create great tech that people rely on. So they said, no, we've been using it. It's really about getting their existing GIS projects out to their stakeholders and viewers and sending it through Teams. So good luck, or not good luck, but good feedback that hey, we are hitting the mark and we're going to continue to evolve this product. So now I'll take just another few minutes for just a quick demo. First one I want to show is just going into SharePoint. One of the things that I like to point out is if I'm in SharePoint, this is really about creating websites. So we have a lot of different ways that we can create websites right now. SharePoint has a way that we can go ahead and create websites. I can go in here and hit edit. I want to add some parts. We have the map search, ArcGIS Maps. Pretty soon, probably later today, tomorrow, you'll see ArcGIS Maps Classic. Or if you're in the modern page, you'll only see ArcGIS Maps. So since this is all pending, I'm not going to install these bits right now. But as you know, it's that same map that you've got to love over the last 45 minutes. Same experience. I add my layers. I can add it from SharePoint. I can add it from ArcGIS. But I also like to point out that as a website builder, there's a lot that we can really do in SharePoint. Maybe I want to put a button, call to action, hero image, stream videos. All of us on this call are really connected with Microsoft 365, and SharePoint has a great way of bringing this to light. And maybe it's getting to a document library. We want to put in conversations from Yammer or feeds from Twitter. We can do that. Adding people to it, or a group calendar, some really cool things. Maybe it's some charting, or we talked about PowerBI reports. I can embed that over here. I can add the weather, always fun to see. But a lot of other integrations down here. Trello, Salesforce, RSS feeds, Power Apps, which we'll get to as well. So really, really cool stuff can be down here, especially if the IT department has standardized on SharePoint. Great, you can insert your own map here. There's even embed frames. So I can embed a web app builder or SurveyMonkey or whatever you want. So this becomes a really, really flexible tool. Moving on from SharePoint, or just a real brief one there, is we will cut over to Teams. So here within Teams, I can search for content. I can do this public search all over the internet, or the millions and millions of items we have. I'm going to go ahead and sign in to ArcGIS Online. And great, I'm signed in. I can go back to my chat. And what we've set up here is a chat bot that interacts with ArcGIS Online within Teams. So what can I do? I can search public content. So I do a public search and say 3D. Let's see some 3D content that comes back here. Is pictometry scenes, or if I have a scene viewer, I can click on this and load it. It's going to pop open the viewer here, and then it's just going to go ahead and load in this 3D web scene for us. So it's streaming in the base map, it's streaming in all of this 3D content and these models that now I can go ahead and interact with directly within Teams. I have tested this out. It looks beautiful, and it is glorious on mobile too. So 3D within Teams, something that's pretty cool to see, but there could be some other really relevant things that we need to do. One of the ones I like to talk about is we can search for feedback, because not everything's perfect in this world, unfortunately. So if I do a search for feedback, and it's going to be working on my result here. Oh, there we go. It made it over. All right. Then I can start to comment on what's happening in the ArcGIS Online base maps. So here, if I click on the imagery map feedback, let me say, here's the imagery map. We can go to Columbus, Ohio, down where I live. And we can go into my neighborhood. And we can see that, this house was built, but they're missing this pond back here. So I want to go ahead and edit. This is a publicly editable feature service as long as I have an ArcGIS account. Same thing could work with within your own ArcGIS Online organization. If there's a feature service that you grant people access to, they can go do that. So I can go in here, click, and then I can say, all right, general map content. Must be outdated imagery, new comment, go ahead and hit add. That gets sent off, it gets stored into the feature service. So really, really cool that I can actually do that interaction, everything right here within Teams. Now, we do have some other connections. I said, what can I do? We saw search. We can do some show information. So if I do show information and just hit enter, so we get a quick response. What do I like to see? My organization or my profile. In this case, somebody's asking me about getting a new account. So I'm going to switch into my organization. It's going to load this page that we all know from ArcGIS Online. Hey, here's my org. I need to go ahead and manage some of my members. I need to add somebody. I was curious about how many credits. Awesome. I didn't have to leave the experience I was already working in. It passed my identity. I didn't have to jump back and forth between browsers and all these other things. I did it right here in Teams. And then last but not least, hey, what do I want to do? I can search my search mine for Kovacs. Let's see what comes up. There's a CSV collection. There's a feature service. We can go ahead and open this feature service. And here we are looking at this data that we've already seen. So maybe I want to change it again to my gray base map, zoom out, close my base map. Now, what you'll recognize is this is the ArcGIS Online Map Viewer. We've embedded it, brought it right into Teams. I can go ahead, do styling of all sorts over here. Once they start sports analysis, I can do all of that. I can change my base maps. I can build a full-on web map if I want right here in Teams, save it, and then send it to somebody in a conversation. So the way I go about doing that is if I was chatting with somebody, just kind of hard to do in a Teams demo here, but I can use the chat bar down here, and you get this message extension. So I can say ArcGIS Maps. I'm going to search my organization. So I'll search for Kovacs, and this could be my Kovacs distribution. So I finished that service, and now I want to go ahead and send that to somebody. So and if I was sending this message to Sarah and it goes to her, she'll get prompted to open it and install ArcGIS for Teams, or she can pop out and open it up in a browser. So really, really cool stuff that we've been working on here at Esri. Just to wrap things up, looking at road ahead, July, August, the consistent mapping interfaces in Power BI and Office. SharePoint will be later tonight, tomorrow. Power BI is going to be due out for another release in about 2 weeks, where we'll get to see Power Automate and some of these really big performance and quality improvements in there. Looking towards the rest of the year, what are we doing? Getting our Microsoft 365 certification so we can get GCC low and GCC high. Location services through the API key. I mentioned that with that offering or platform as a service. We're going to start working on, we've already started working on the web version of Excel. So within Teams, if I open up the Word document and the maps in there, it's just there. This is going to be really exciting, really cool stuff. I've actually seen it working. I can't wait to get it in your hands. Full 3D support across all the products, so Power BI, Office, SharePoint. And then we're going to start working on Power Apps component. So Power Automate is kind of like our model builder. Power Apps is kind of like web app builder. So it gets a little bit more custom. That is all within the Microsoft ecosystem. So you can build your flows with Power Automate. You can display and build custom apps that have an ArcGIS map within your Power Apps components. So we're putting some effort and energy in on that one. On that one, I'm just going to go ahead and stop and hang out, and we'll take some questions.
Yeah, so hey, Andrew, this is Sarah Linden. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. The hour went by quick. There are a few pressing questions I want to make sure folks get answers to rather immediately, given that we're almost at the top of the hour. But the first one relates to a specific capability. Is the ArcGIS version for Power BI able to lasso like the Excel version?
There is a select. I know we can do box and individual. I was pretty sure that there's a lasso in there. Man, you caught me off guard with a curveball on that one. I'm going to strike. I'm pretty sure that we can follow up.
Okay, I'll mark that for follow up. I know there's a lot of interest around the GCC certification, and then there's also concerns about ArcGIS Online not being the required level of FedRAMP. And that's also another example where leveraging ArcGIS Enterprise likely would need to be the case, though we'd have to speak with y'all directly on what that data looks like. But on the GCC High, if it is a requirement, do you have any timeline for when that will be completed?
We are halfway through the certification process with Microsoft right now, just going back and forth, working through the paperwork, but also mechanical testing of everything. Realistically, end of the year, optimistically October.
Great. Also related to Power BI, what about bringing in AGOL data to be able to display data in a non-map format?
Yes, so it looks like that's from NT. How's it going, NT? This is something that we're going to be able to do with Power Automate. So Power Automate will query the data out of a feature service. It can write it to a CSV. We can set that to run every 6 hours or every 12 hours. And then Power BI will be set to refresh off of that CSV. And that's the way that we build that pipeline from ArcGIS into Power BI. But really, really, really close. And we're doing some additional testing on that week. So that way it's perfect for you when it's available.
The next question also relates to Power Automate. Are the Power Automate recipes available? If so, is there a step needed to see them? In an initial search, I cannot find them.
Yes, so I did mention when I was showing that part in the browser that this is on our QA environment, not question and answer, but quality assurance. And it is not publicly accessible just yet. We're doing some final certification testing, and it's something that you will be seeing if you search for it in about 3 weeks.
Perfect. Back up to Power BI. In your experience, how large of a data set can it handle before it gets laggy or impossible to use?
That's a great question. So Power BI actually puts in some limitations, and I believe it's you can get up to 1 gig of data in there. And if you get larger than a gig, it will error or communicate back to you that you've exceeded this limit. There are ways of doing on-demand and loading in more, which includes some different hoops that you'd have to jump through, and this is documented by Microsoft. But as you're going through these, and again, I call them hoops lovingly, you're acknowledging, hey, I'm going beyond the design limits of the software. I'm okay if it's slow. But they do have a lot of these things built in place, so that way it stays performant.
Perfect. Question on SharePoint that we didn't answer is, when you're attaching documents to locations on SharePoint, is it only for point data or does it work for polygons and lines?
Oh, fantastic question. It works with all geometry types. So we can associate it with a point, or it could be associated with a polygon and a line there. So.
Great. Backing up to the Microsoft Office, this is very specific. So if the columns and rows were transposed, would this still work based on the demo you gave? Just trying to get a sense of how intelligent the app is within Excel.
If they were transposed, I'm not sure I totally follow that one. We will read all of the columns or whatever is in your selection. And if you needed to convert something over to a table and be a little bit more rigid with it, we could do that. Yeah, if it's, you put in latitude, longitude, or called it 2 other fields, you could put that in there. I don't see how you would have like X, Y as a, yeah, I don't see how you could really flip it too much the other way. But it is pretty flexible. It has some intelligence built in and trying to clean the data, but it's not going to be perfect. So if you download it, try it and break it, you can post it to the forums. Myself and some of the developers will respond back and help you out.
Great. Well, I think that brings us to the end of our webinar. There are a few more questions, but we do have the names of the folks who asked the questions and can respond via email to those. So with that, I'll thank you all for your time, and I'll turn it back over to Ricklin.
Thank you everyone for attending today's session. We'd like to kindly ask you to take a moment to complete the survey at the close of the webinar. If you enjoyed today's session, please check back with the next webinar in the National Government Series on Digital Twins on August 19th. Once again, thank you for attending, and that concludes today's presentation.